What if I told you that every single thing you have ever been told about fighting the aging process, every supplement stack, every cryotherapy session, every red light panel you agonized over buying, has been circling the wrong target? What if the most powerful anti-aging protocol on the planet was never invented in a lab? What if it already lives inside your nervous system, your joints, your hips, and it's been dormant your whole life because nobody told you to wake it up? Here's the part that stopped me cold when I first came across the research. The creatures on this earth with the most robust spinal health, the densest bones, the most reactive fast-twitch muscle fibers relative to their body weight are not the ones who train on machines. They are not the ones following periodization programs. They move on all fours. They are low to the ground. They shift their weight through vectors that modern human beings have completely abandoned. And today, we are going to dismantle the assumption that upright, bilateral, machine-based movement is the gold standard for longevity, because the data says otherwise, and your body already knows it. Modern life makes us soft. Primal movement makes us unbreakable. We don't just lift weight, we reclaim our nature. That is what this channel has always stood for. That is the standard we build from. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you will have a complete framework, a longevity blueprint you can test in your own living room tonight. The evolution of anti-aging. Let's set the stage. Right now, the biohacking world is obsessed with optimization from the outside in. Rapamycin protocols, NAD+ infusions, continuous glucose monitors on athletes who eat clean. I am not dismissing any of that. Some of it is genuinely fascinating science. But I want you to notice what most of it has in common. It assumes that the body is already moving correctly. It assumes that the mechanical foundation is sound. And for most people living in 2026, that assumption is catastrophically wrong. Here is what actually happens to the human body under modern sedentary conditions, and I want you to picture this clearly. When you sit for prolonged periods, which the average adult does for 11+ hours a day, your hip flexors adaptively shorten, your glutes go into inhibition, the deep stabilizing muscles along your lumbar spine stop firing, not because they are damaged, because the nervous system is efficient. It stops recruiting muscles that are never asked to work. Now layer in upright bilateral gym training on top of that dysfunctional base. You are loading a crooked foundation. You're pressing heavy weight through joints that have lost their full rotational capacity. And year after year, the cartilage pays the price. The intervertebral discs lose hydration because they are never moved through their full compression and decompression cycle. By the time most men hit their late 30s, they are not just getting older, they are calcifying, literally. Joints that do not move through their full range of motion eventually begin to deposit calcium at the margins. That is joint aging, and it is almost entirely preventable. Now, where does gorilla movement come in? Gorillas, and I'm talking specifically about the quadrupedal locomotion patterns of great apes, load the body through planes of motion that upright human beings almost never access. When a gorilla shifts its weight from side to side in a lateral shuffle, it is activating hip abductors, adductors, and deep rotators simultaneously. When it transfers load through knuckle-walking crawl, it is distributing axial compression through the wrist, elbow, shoulder, and thoracic spine in a closed kinetic chain that no chest press machine can replicate. And crucially, the spine is in a neutral, slightly anterior tilted position. Traction occurs. The discs breathe. This is not a metaphor. This is biomechanics. And reclaiming these patterns, even partially, even imperfectly, is one of the most potent biological resets available to the aging human body.
Let me give you the core movements. 3 movements. That's all you need to start. Quadrupedal shift. Get on hands and knees, wrists under shoulders, knees under hips. Now rock your body weight forward over your wrists, then backward, then in a slow diagonal, right wrist, left hip. This is not yoga. This is joint loading under controlled conditions. You are sending mechanoreceptor signals into your wrist and shoulder capsules that most adults have not sent in years. Do this for 90 seconds without thinking about working out. You are recalibrating. Your nervous system is learning again that it has to stabilize from 4 contact points instead of 2. Lateral gorilla shuffle. From a deep squat position, and yes, you need to own that squat, place both hands on the floor and begin to move laterally. Right foot, right hand, left foot, left hand. Stay low. Let your hips drop below your knees. Let your thoracic spine round naturally, because in this context, that rounding is not a defect, it's a feature. That convex spinal position creates intervertebral space on the posterior side of your discs. It's the opposite of the compression that sitting all day creates. Stay in this movement for 90 seconds in each direction. You will feel muscles you have never felt before, not because they are weak, but because they have never been invited to this conversation. The knuckle walk crawl. This is the one people resist the most. Make loose fists, load your weight onto your knuckles, middle knuckles, not fingertips, and crawl forward. Slow, deliberate. Feel the way your scapula have to move independently of each other. Feel the rotation in your hips. This movement requires more motor coordination than a deadlift. It requires more joint communication than a squat. And it does something that almost nothing else in your training does. It loads the wrist extensors and carpal tunnel structures in a decompressive position, which for desk workers and lifters with chronic forearm tightness is frankly medicine. You are not exercising, you are remembering. These patterns are encoded in your evolutionary hardware. You are simply turning the switch back on. Now about bone density, because this is where it gets genuinely exciting. There's a principle in bone physiology called Wolff's Law. Bone remodels in response to the specific mechanical stresses placed on it. When you shift load through novel vectors, angles your skeleton rarely experiences, osteoblasts are recruited to lay down new mineral matrix in exactly those areas. Ground-based multidirectional loading is arguably the most underutilized bone density stimulus in existence, not because it's brutal, because it's varied, because it asks the skeleton to bear weight from directions it almost never encounters in standard gym training. Neurological rewiring through primal patterns. Now I want to talk about your brain, because physical aging and cognitive aging are not parallel tracks, they're the same track.
There is robust research. I want to point specifically to work out of the Motor Control Lab at the Salk Institute and separate findings published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience, suggesting that the complexity of movement sequencing has a direct protective effect on age-related cortical thinning. When you perform movements that require your brain to coordinate bilateral limb patterns in novel combinations, like the quadrupedal transitions we are talking about today, you are activating the cerebellum, the basal ganglia, and the prefrontal cortex simultaneously. You are generating what neuroscientists call cross-hemispheric integration. You are, in essence, giving your brain a workout that no treadmill can replicate. Think about what a gorilla does when it navigates its environment. It is not following a program. It is making real-time adjustments to uneven ground, unpredictable surfaces, shifting weight distributions. Every step is a computational problem, and the brain that solves those problems stays sharp. The research on proprioceptive complexity and cognitive reserve is converging on a simple but profound idea. The more varied and demanding your movement vocabulary, the more protected your brain is from the attrition of aging.
There is another layer here that most coaches completely overlook, and that is cortisol regulation through movement rhythm. Repetitive, rhythmic ground-based movement, like the lateral shuffle or a slow bear crawl, activates the parasympathetic nervous system in a way that heavy bilateral lifting simply does not. The rhythm itself becomes a signal to the body that the threat is manageable, that it is safe to recover. Chronic high cortisol is one of the primary molecular drivers of accelerated aging. It suppresses telomerase activity, meaning your chromosomes age faster. And the way to drive cortisol down is not just sleep and cold plunges. It is moving your body in ways that feel, at a deep biological level, like coming home. Integrating guerrilla strength into modern training. Let me give you something immediately actionable. Here's how you layer primal movement into a standard training week without dismantling what is already working for you. Before every upper body session, replace your standard warm-up with 8 minutes of ground-based movement, 2 minutes of quadrupedal rocking, 2 minutes of the lateral gorilla shuffle, 2 minutes of knuckle walk crawls, 2 minutes of the silverback reach. From a deep squat, reach one arm overhead while the opposite hand stays on the floor. Then rotate your torso to follow. Slow, controlled. Let the thoracic spine open. That sequence alone will do more for your shoulder health and pressing performance than foam rolling ever could. The silverback press. Here's the setup. Start in a push-up position with your hands on 2 low parallettes or hex plates on the floor. Before you descend, shift your weight laterally so your right shoulder bears 60% of the load. Press from that asymmetric position. Come back to center, shift left, press. The lateral weight transfer means your serratus anterior and rotator cuff must fire to stabilize against shear, not just compression. You are training functional pressing power, the kind that actually carries over to real-world force production, while protecting your joints from the cumulative stress of bilateral pressing. For beginners, do not attempt to go straight to knuckle walk crawls on a hard surface. Start with wrist circles and quadrupedal rocking for 2 weeks. Let the wrist extensors adapt. Let the shoulder capsule build tolerance. The transition from upright bilateral training to ground-based loading is a genuine tissue adaptation process. Respect it. You'll get there faster by going slower at the start. For advanced athletes, once you own the basic patterns, introduce the variable, uneven terrain. A yoga block under one hand during the quadrupedal rock, a slight incline for the crawl. These micro-instabilities multiply the proprioceptive demand enormously. They are the difference between training in a controlled environment and training your body to be genuinely resilient in an unpredictable world. The longevity blueprint for 2026 and beyond. Here's your weekly blueprint. Think of this not as a workout plan. Think of it as a biological maintenance protocol. Day, session. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, standard resistance training. Open every session with 8-minute primal groundwork. Tuesday, Thursday, dedicated primal movement, 30 minutes, no weights, floor only. Saturday, long, slow, varied movement. Walk barefoot, crawl in grass, move instinctively. Sunday, full recovery, slow breathing, gentle loaded stretching, deliberate rehydration of connective tissue. I want to make a prediction. By 2028, movement-based biohacking will be the dominant conversation in the longevity space, not because pharmaceuticals are failing, some of them are extraordinary, but because the research community is converging on a consensus that no molecule can compensate for mechanical dysfunction. You cannot supplement your way out of a spine that stopped moving. You cannot inject your way to joint capsule integrity. The body requires movement variety. It requires load through novel vectors. It requires, fundamentally, the kind of complex three-dimensional ground-based locomotion that our physiology spent millions of years optimizing for. And that's the thread that runs through everything we do on this channel. The Silverback Standard is not about nostalgia. It's not about rejecting science. It's about understanding that the most cutting-edge thing you can do for your biology in 2026 is to stop treating your body like a machine and start treating it like the living, adaptive, primal organism it actually is. Modern life makes us soft. Primal movement makes us unbreakable. We don't just lift weight, we reclaim our nature. You have been handed a framework today that most people in the biohacking world won't encounter for another 3 years. The question is whether you're going to sit on it or whether you're going to drop to the floor tonight and start the conversation your nervous system has been waiting to have. If this landed for you, if something shifted while you were watching, do one thing right now. Share it with one person who's fighting joint pain, fighting stiffness, the feeling that their body is aging faster than it should. Because what I laid out today is not complicated. It doesn't require equipment. It requires a willingness to get on the floor and move like the animal you actually are. And if you want the full Silverback longevity protocol, the complete 8-week primal movement progression, the exact weekly structure, the coaching cues, that's in the video linked right above this one. Everything you need is already in this channel. The work just has to begin. I'm Dr. Aris Thorne. This is Primal Unleash and Subscribe, and we'll see you on the floor.